So, you're interested in buying a Golf GTI Mk5. The model that I'm in is a 250 brake horsepower model. It has a stage 1 remap, 18-inch 3DSM alloys, and it's a beauty of a car. My name's Satch, and welcome to Driver 81. So first off, before we get into the video, I want to say that these cars are absolutely fantastic little pocket rockets. If you treat them right, if you maintain them correctly, they will look after you. They are beautiful little cars. However, there are a few things on these cars that over time can deteriorate, the same as any other car, but I want to bring these things to your attention so that you can maybe get a little bit of extra information, maybe if you're looking to buy one of these cars and you want to know what to look out for, what type of things will break or go wrong, or what kind of maintenance costs you'll need to budget for if you're buying one of these cars. It's not to scare you at all. As I say, they are great cars, but there are a few things that you can do, and checks wise, that you can do on your own before you take the plunge and actually buy a car yourself. Okay, so the first thing is the engine. The engine, although it is extremely reliable, it can make a fair old racket, and it does make quite a noise while sitting at idle. Don't let that fool you into thinking it's a problem with the engine, because it's not. They all do that. Unfortunately, this can make problem noises in the engine a little bit harder to diagnose and actually listen out for. So listen out for a rattle upon startup, and then the rattle will probably disappear and then come back a few miles later. That can indicate a problem with the camshaft driven pressure fuel pump, which is a known weak point in these engines. Now, VW specialists will generally ask you to change these around about every 20,000 miles simply as a precaution, and the parts only cost about £30, so it's quite cheap to actually keep changing that every 20,000 miles. Okay, the next thing you want to be listening out for is when you turn the engine off, the sound of maybe leaking air or sucking air, kind of like a this would indicate a split in the PCV one-way breather valve, and this would go hand in hand with a rough idle. Don't worry about this though, again, it's not that expensive to change the part. You're probably going to look at about £40 to change the part over. Next up is the engine cover. Don't worry about this one single bit though. Obviously all of the serviceable parts like the air filters and other sensors, they're all located under the engine cover, or the engine, the engine cover. So this cover will probably in its lifetime be taken off and put back on quite a few times, as I say, within its lifetime. And because of this, unfortunately, the little grommets which hold it in place can snap. Now, it's not a problem, it's not going to affect performance at all. A replacement part will cost about £50, 40 to £50, but that might be the cause if you're getting a rattle underneath underneath the bonnet in the engine bay. So if you've got a rattle, that's what that could be. Next up is the ignition coils. They are another weak point in these cars, and they tend to go or fail in packs. Sorry, the sweat is just dripping off me. These ignition coils are pretty easy to replace. They're not labor intensive at all. Anybody can do them if you've got a set of basic tools, and you can expect us to pay around about £100 for a set of 4 ignition coils. Okay, these cars are no different to any other VW. The timing belt needs to be changed on these. Depending on what you read, what service manual you read, it'll tell you different intervals for when you should actually change the timing belt. The latest information that I read seemed to say that it should be changed at 70,000 miles, and then obviously another 70,000 miles after that. The procedure to change the timing belt on this particular car, the Mk5 Golf GTI, is a little bit awkward, I'm not going to lie. You can buy the kits for, I think they're about £150. Then obviously you can do the work yourself. However, you can obviously let the garage take control of it, and they might charge you about £450 to get the timing belt done on these cars. The reason it's a little bit tricky is because it's very tricky to get some of the bolts out, and if you can't get them out, then unfortunately they may need to be drilled out. So it might be worth you just taking it to a garage and getting it done anyway. A VW specialist would be perfect. Okay, so we're going to move on to transmission now. The transmission in this car is the 6-speed manual. Doesn't give any problems at all. There aren't any widespread reported problems with the 6-speed manual gearbox. It's not the most inspiring change you will encounter, but one thing with the manual box is to look out for a heavy clutch. A heavy clutch is a sure sign that it needs to be changed, and that might cost £500 or £600. Now, a lot of people choose to go for the DSG gearbox. The DSG gearbox is obviously the automatic. It is absolutely fantastic when working correctly. It needs to be serviced, and unfortunately, if you need to replace it, it will be very costly. Even repairs will be very costly. Look out for hunting gear changes, so if it's taking a long time to change, if the change is very rough and you feel, rough, like you're being jerked back and forwards when it's changing gears, or it's very slow to shift, it's a sure sign that it either needs a good service or parts replacing on that gearbox. Next up is the dual mass flywheel. If these are to go, they will be very expensive to replace. Listen out for a rumbling sound or a clattering sound when the car is stationary but the engine is on. Okay, so as you will know, the GTI is a front wheel drive, but commonly suffers from excessive wear on the inside of the rear tyres. This is due to the rear shock absorbers becoming weak, a bit like a worn wheel bearing, so listen out for that. There have also been issues with springs just completely snapping, so you'll come back out to your car and you'll notice that one of the corners is just lower than it should be, so make sure you get down to eye level and make sure that all of the gaps between the wheel arches are the same on each side. Alright, I've had to take a quick break because the camera died, I was getting too hot, had sweat dripping down my forehead, so taking a quick break and I'm going to crack on with it now. The next thing to look out for is the fact that the rear bushings on the front wishbones tend to wear quite quickly, which can lead to the inside of the front tyres wearing quite quickly. So get down on your knees, look at the inside of the front tyres, that's a sure indication that those bushings have gone. Okay, if you've got the 18-inch Monza alloys, they have a diamond cut finish and do suffer quite badly from corrosion, the aluminium corrosion that is. So getting them reconditioned can cost about £300. So it's worth checking a lot of pictures of the alloys before you go and visit the car, or indeed if you just go in there, making sure there's no corrosion on there, because you may need to factor in an extra £300 bill for getting those refurbished. Okay, so moving on to the body and the chassis of the car. As with most Volkswagens, the fit and the finish is generally going to be pretty good, pretty tidy, pretty smart and pretty smooth. Make sure you do the usual checks for, say for example, vehicle damage or accident damage perhaps. Look underneath the bonnet, look at all of the bolts which are holding the wings in place, to making sure that they haven't been removed or there's no actual paint flaking off there, any damage to the wings or missing paint from the chassis rails or mismatching paint colour. The boot lid release handle is a well-known problem. It can stick quite often and not open correctly. So check that the VW badge on the rear boot springs back to where it should be once you've actually opened it and quite smoothly into position. The high level brake light can also let in water. Alright, I'm off and moving again, had a little bit of a suitable break. The final thing on the list though is the interior. The interior is generally finished really well, I would say. I have seen reports online and a lot of people saying that there are a lot of rattles, clunks, vibrations on the interior of the car, in the actual cockpit. However, I don't experience that. This is a 12-year-old car and I think the finish on this car, there's no real rattles, clunks or noises that there shouldn't be on the interior of the car. I'm pretty sure that this is a good finish on the GTI, but if you are getting excessive rattles, then it's hard to diagnose a rattle, and it's hard to put a price on how much it would be to fix, because ultimately nobody knows. It could be something like a vent which is rattling, which might only cost £10 to fix, or could be the full dashboard, all of the screws have gone, or whatever. As I say, it's impossible to diagnose, but in this car it's the only car I've got a gauge on. It's pretty damn good, so I'm happy with that. Okay, so I hope this may well have helped you, even just a tiny bit if you are looking to go and buy one of these Golf GTIs. Don't let this put you off too much, because these are known problems on these cars, and generally the people who own these cars, they are enthusiasts, so the chances are these have probably been put right. Unless you're getting one which is like, I don't know, 1,500 quid or £2,000, less than the normal asking price for them, then seriously you're probably going to have to spend that £2,000 on parts putting it right. But that's up to you to do, to make your own checks. All I can really do is just give you a really short guide on what to look out for. I hope it's been helpful. Thanks very much for watching this video, and I'll see you next time.